All right. Well, welcome to our work session. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Grishman for an update on the opening of school. And then subsequently, we'll have updates from Mr. Manuel on construction and an update on school security.
Basically, a week into school, and from the very first day, which I've shared with staff and with some of the PTA meetings I've been at, from the very first day, by the afternoon of last Wednesday, it seemed like we've been up and running for weeks. Incredible smooth opening, transportation unfolded well, scheduling and staffing unfolded well, and an incredible credit firstly to our buildings and grounds staff for the amazing work that they did over the summer and the last couple of days getting the building clean and ready to open, with also tremendous support from our technology staff, who made sure that our tech was, especially where all the construction took place, that our technology was up and running. Our clericals, our administrators, our teachers that were in over the summer did an incredible job, leading to the very smooth opening of school. And again, congratulations to everybody who did an unbelievable job in ensuring that kids came to school in a healthy, safe, smooth environment. Victor, can you do a quick update on construction, where we're at, what's outstanding? And
Sure. For most people, what they will see construction-wise is several bathrooms throughout the district, both student and staff, were renovated over the summer. I would say we are substantially complete at this time. Didn't think we would be a few days before school started, but we made the final stretch. You'll notice still some work going on in the exterior of the middle school, where we dug down and put in some windows on the bottom floor where none existed prior. We did some more HVAC rooftop units, I think 12 at this building and a couple at the elementary schools. So a lot of construction took place both inside the building and outside the building. But again, we're substantially complete in most areas.
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to introduce Brian, or you want me to?
Yeah, please.
Okay. As everybody's aware, probably for the last 5-6 years, Brian, we've been working with Altaris, who have been our mainstay in supporting our teacher training, administrative training around the areas of security, making recommendations, working very closely with the Nassau County Police Department, and really have given us a high level of comfort in the strategies and practices and equipment that we put in place. Our major contact with Altaris has been Brian, and Brian has been again, a huge resource for us, and on a moment's notice, he's been here to answer questions or to support us. And tonight we welcome Brian, asked him to give the board an update in terms of where we are for the 24-25 school year. Brian, welcome, and thank you for being with us this evening.
Very good. Thank you very much. Turn your microphone on.
Thank you very much for being here, for allowing me to be here. I'm Brian Shanahan from Altaris. Unfortunately, we were reading an evening after a day where there was another school tragedy down in Georgia. They're very fluid with the investigation, but unfortunately we see some loss of life. We see people that were injured, and we always look, and not only, our hearts go out to them, and at some point when we see and gather more information, we'll be able to debrief and share. And we definitely learn, and we do a disservice for anybody who's hurt in these incidents if we don't learn from those incidents. But also we take a close look when we talk about safety and security and what we currently have in place and what we're doing in comparison to not only other districts nearby, but other districts across the United States. And I would say over the years, you've embraced a lot of improvement opportunities. We've done an assessment of the school district a few years back, and just recently we did a reassessment of the school district, taking a look at some of the items even last year, which you started to talk about, some of the things that we are looking to add, improve upon. There are a lot of things on safety improvements that are specific to each of the school buildings. And we don't always want to share every specific because it could make us susceptible in certain situations or bad actors that may be looking for something. But I will say that based on what we've done, based on training, based on infrastructure that we currently have, I'm pretty confident that we've embraced safety and security to a point where we can make some of those comparisons if we were in a lockdown type of situation, or if there was an intruder on the property, and the encouragement and empowerment of not just our staff, but the things that we have in place to alert authorities, to be able to lock doors, and to have that security that we have worked towards and improved upon over the years. To report to the board, last year we did a number of tabletop scenarios, we did a number of training sessions, both myself and one of our other consultants that is based right here out of Long Island. We met with each of the buildings, we discussed some specific scenarios involving potentially an intruder, an irate parent, a gas leak. These are just some examples of presenting that if this were to occur at the buildings and how each of their teams would respond to those situations. And they did a very wonderful, great job. We observed a couple of lockdown drills at the buildings to assess and evaluate. We talked about parent reunification as an overview, and that's going to be something that we're going to be continuing to work toward this school year coming up. We actually had the opportunity last school year to meet with all the transportation, all the people that work in transportation and talk to them about safety and security. So we're hitting all the folks that potentially would be involved in any type of concern if there was a safety issue that we're to report to and things along those lines. We completed all of the building level plans for the 24-25 school year at each of the buildings, as well as a district-wide plan to make sure that we have the up-to-date, most compliant pieces that are necessary. And I'll share a few items as far as New York State Department of Education and some changes that are in effect for the 24-25 school year that are already in our plans themselves. One of the things that we are going to continue to work towards this year, as far as trainings are concerned, is not only the individual building level emergency response teams to continue their training, debriefs, and information that, as far as best practices nationwide, but continue those tabletop trainings. We're going to be looking to meet with some of the teachers' assistants. And some of the folks don't always get that one-on-one training if they're supervising children as to what their best practice and response would be, and make sure they feel confident, comfortable, and empowered should they be alerted to something of concern, even if it's an animal complaint or something in the cursory that's a non-imminent threat to a school building, but we need to react in the most appropriate way and not delay in that empowerment kind of piece. So that's good trainings to report to the board. New York State, this year for 24-25, as far as the education department, has made some changes as far as drills are concerned. They want to make sure that we are not building on trauma. We want to have trauma-informed, age-appropriate drills. That's from the state, that's a requirement. And as I go through just a few of these items that are necessary, I would say that you've embraced this and have a lot of the things that the state's requiring of every school district in New York State, you're already doing, and you've been doing for a few years. So it's nice because we're not pivoting or having to make a lot of changes. You know, notification to parents may be one, where now every single drill that happens, parents will be notified by each building 1 week prior to the drill. Not dates and times, but they will be alerted. So all the children, age appropriate, but all the children K through 12, families will be notified that we are having drills coming up the week prior, at least 1 week prior to each drill. Parents have to be notified of that. All the drills will be done in a safe, appropriate, drill-sensitive manner, meaning there's no surprises. People will be notified that this is a drill and it's only a drill, so we're building on the muscle memory and have the understanding of the appropriate response versus there being unannounced drills. So all the drills would be announced and everybody would know when they were coming. No changes to the drill frequency. We still have to do 12 emergency drills a year as required. That's 8 evacuations/fire and 4 lockdowns. False alarms cannot count towards the drills, so if we have any false alarms where schools used to be able to say, oh, that counts as one of our drills, that no longer
They used to
count.
love being able to count.
Exactly.
False alarms.
And then you can't do more than 1 drill a day. So that was something where years ago, it was a nice day, we tried to put a couple fire drills in one day and say, okay, that meets some of our numbers, you can no longer do more than 1 drill a day. So you can only do 1 drill a day at different times. So we're not testing the system, but having a good understanding of what the appropriate response would be in those situations. On our fire drills, we're going to be making sure that we have to utilize at least half of the minimum fire drills that we have to do. We're going to use secondary egress as required by the state to bring that confidence level up. And as far as all the other notifications and trainings, those are things that are incorporated in our trainings every year. And as always, all of your staff utilizes different systems to make sure they are updated on all the emergency protocols as required by the state prior to September 15th, which you've always been in compliance for when we talk about the state itself.
Thank you very much, Brian. Open it up to, anybody have questions for Brian? I just want to just make a quick statement. I cannot overemphasize the safety and security of our buildings, and the safety of our children is our number one priority. Safety of our staff and faculty, and obviously, you know, our work with Altaris and work behind the scenes to ensure that we have, you know, state-of-the-art security and procedures in place to ensure that is paramount. So thank you.
Do you want me to just mention this?
Sure, feel free.
Thanks, Chris. So the district just purchased these systems. They're called Raptor. They literally just arrived today, one for each of the main entrances, one high school, one middle school, one admin over here, and one for each of the 3 elementary schools. Any outside visitors visiting the district during the school day will be required to provide an ID, a New York State license, which will go into the system. The system will then check certain databases for sex offender lists, outstanding warrants, etc., prior to be given a visitor's badge for the time that they're here in the building.
With the system, Victor, I meant to ask, if somebody does not have a New York State driver's license, what would be the protocol? So somebody, let's say, who's just moved in from out of state, out of country, and they show up at an elementary school, what would the protocol be?
Can an out-of-state ID be used?
I think an out-of-state license could be
Will
used.
work.
I'm not sure if there is absolutely no license or ID.
What is our protocol if they will we not let them in?
So most schools, if they are registered with the district, they're a parent that is registered with the district, that may take that next level with this system, may take that next level. If we don't have a government issued ID, they could be manually entered into the system. So you can actually have all of them manually entered. So if somebody were to come up, your security, whoever's looking, hey, I don't have my license, but I've been in the system, they can actually manually enter that information to verify their identification.
That being said, for efficiency's sake, and to make the whole process more seamless, it would be in everybody's best interest that if they are gonna present to a school building and they need to enter the building, that they should present with a valid government ID. Again, it's just gonna delay things if you don't, and you know, in most instances, people should have a valid government ID.
And to just add on to that, because that's a great point, as these are implemented, as you push that information out to the community, even if you have your ID license on a picture, with your license on a picture, like on a photo, that still cannot work. So you need to have that dip. They could use that to punch it in manually, but that won't automatically go through. So that's a great point.
I think we, probably Denise, in an upcoming newsletter, should probably have an article on Raptor, so our parents are informed of the requirement to bring identification with them.
And again, we just received it. It'll probably take a week or so for technology and everything to be up and running.
I have experience with this system. It's quick, it's easy. You present the ID to the security officer or whoever's checking the ID. They put it into the machine. They quickly run the background. You get a sticker with a picture of you, and that way, you know, everybody's confident that, you know, we have the proper people in our buildings at all times.
Hi, and thank you for joining us tonight and talking about security, which I think, as Chris mentioned, is an extremely important topic for all parents and all families. So my question is how many districts on Long Island do you advise or consult with? Do you know approximately?
Over a dozen, probably close to 20.
Neighboring districts?
Yes.
Okay. Question for you as far as, you know, once again, you consulting with them, you advising the schools. As far as outside security, standing outside in cars, you know, labeled, is this something that you encourage all schools to do? As far as just guards, whether they're outsourcing it or they're district employees?
I think they need to be, most schools are making sure if you have security that they're recognizable, that you have security on campus. So that's actually one level of a deterrent, so people know if I'm coming out,
Correct.
I can see something, I can see the fact that there's a security car, there's a security guard. It also allows them to know that maybe the person they ask a question to, hey, how do I get, I'm visiting the property, where would I go to have that guidance? But it's that extra level of safety, security, but extra level of eyes and ears of somebody that may be looking at something from a different lens. Yeah.
So you do encourage it for a security card to be parked outside of each building? You know, obviously schools can have many buildings, but is this something that you recommend for all buildings
I think that
as a deterrent?
yes, I think if you're implementing security, you have security, and that's available to you. You want to be able to have that visual to say we have security present.
Okay, and regarding cell phone use, it's been a topic that's been in the news recently. Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I actually just started this question. The argument can be made, you know, as far as cell phone use, you know, if your child is not allowed to have their cell phone in the classroom or they're put away, in case of emergency, what happens then? Just in prior incidents that have happened across the nation in the past few years, how has cell phone use played a role in those emergencies, you know, of kids reaching out to parents and telling them, hey, there's a situation in school?
So there's two ways that you look at the situation when you talk about cell phones, and I would have to defer back to whatever, you know, rules and regulations are gonna come out both from the state and county level, because I know that that's kind of a hot topic these days. One concern is that when students have their cell phones and if they're not in a silent or off mode, you potentially are giving up their location during a quiet lockdown type of situation. The other challenge that we have during specific emergencies is the tying up of cell towers, and we've seen that happen over and over again. So I understand the importance to be able to communicate even in events today that you probably have seen on the news where students are reaching out to their parents. It has been in the past, I don't know the infrastructure exactly where we are in the second precinct and where we are environmentally with landscape and what have you, but I have seen in the past where so many calls go out after an emergency that it actually inhibits police response and communication because cell towers get tied up and that digital signal gets tied up. So technically, those are two ways, like either you're giving up a location by phones ringing, or too much false information may be going out as far as tying up those cell towers.
We have put cell phone use on, Denise, do you know which work session you have that on?
14th.
Okay,
November 14th.
November 14th, we have a public discussion on cell phone use. And by then, we expect that whatever position the governor might be taking, we'll have that information for our public discussion on cell phone. Again, just from the conversations that have taken place statewide and locally regarding cell phones, there's a whole range of reaction. And interesting in terms of looking at some of the districts and agencies that have done some research, specifically looking at cell phone and the correlation to bullying. And again, the research is pretty vague. It really is not conclusive.
Just, Jen, just expanding on what you said, and Brian, thank you for your commentary on that. I can tell you, you know, from years of experience in emergency response, even smaller scale events, I mean, you know, God forbid we ever found ourselves in a position where, you know, children were having to call their parents and you know, try to convey a message. Those cell towers will absolutely become clogged. AT&T developed a system called First Connect. As it stands currently, police and fire departments, my phone included, have a priority preemption to access cell towers, because in those situations, obviously, we need to be able to communicate. The most important call that anybody needs to make, you know, God forbid we find ourselves in a situation where there's been, you know, some breach in security and you know, in a worse scenario, you know, some act of violence, is the call needs to be made to 911. I know everybody's gonna wanna call their parents and say, you know, they're okay, and that's great, but, you know, the first thing that needs to happen is 911 needs to be called to alert them that there's been a security breach and something is going on. But, you know, having thousands of kids, you know, trying to call their parents, nobody's gonna be talking to anybody. Yeah, and, you know, again, Hank is illustrating to me the system we have now, obviously, to be able to communicate with the police department and the panic buttons.
Rave
Yeah, the Rave app. That's something too that runs in the background. Again, those connections need to be made, and those are priority connections. So those notifications obviously are the priority. But I think the larger conversation about cell phones in schools is definitely controversial. And to your point, there is going to be some expected guidance from the state on that.
I just wanted to follow up. I'm sorry, 1 second, I'm just looking through my notes. As far as staff wearing IDs, I think it was a discussion a while back. Is all staff are required to wear IDs in this building? And the reason just being so you could identify who works here and who's someone from the outside, is that what it is?
There are multiple reasons. It's for identification, but all of our door locks are, and we keep all of our classroom doors locked at all times. So in order for a classroom door to be unlocked, one would need to use the ID, which has a chip in it that gives access where access is appropriate to staff members. So that is a second and probably even a more significant reason why we have them on staff members.
Okay, and regarding training and drills, Altaris specifically, how many times a year are you guys coming in and doing any kind of training with staff?
At a minimum, per building, 2 times a year, typically in the fall and spring.
Okay,
We've done more than that because it's not just, well, we stop there, because there's never a meter running. When we work with your district, we're also 24/7, so if there's an issue, even after hours, we need to consult or have a phone call, we most certainly can do that. But we've done multiple trainings, so trainings, and then we also want to see drills. So sometimes we'll combine that. We'll combine it with having conversations about off-site evacuations, where we're going, what that would look like. And like I said, one of the big things we really want to try to make sure we get to this year beyond the initial training that we did is parent reunification, is making sure we have good solid plans of off-site, what that's going to look like, who's filling what roles, and making sure there's a comfortability with each of the teams should they have to go through the parent reunification.
okay, and so when you guys are coming to do the training, I guess especially in the fall, new teachers, new staff, are those ever like a focus for you guys, or you just leave it up to the building principals for them to decide who's gonna partake in that training?
So it's a great question. So each building has a building level emergency response team, which is made up of typically made up of an administrator, somebody from facilities, mental health, nurse, and several teachers, cross-section teachers. That's the core group that typically we train with. They then sometimes will present out to their faculty with like mini tabletops or discussions or things that they found at the building level. But it is most certainly something that we can do if a principal says, hey, you know what, you're here for, October 1st, can you also do a faculty meeting? Absolutely, we can run and discuss some things in a faculty meeting. One of the things that you utilize as a school district is Global Compliance Network, which is a video compliance every year. So every staff member is required to see, from a safety standpoint, all the emergency protocols required by the state. The other nice thing, I was gonna kind of wait till I concluded, but I worked very closely with everybody here, which is nice to have communication should something come up at a building. But for years I was working with Ben Trufo directly. Now I have the wonderful relationship with Assistant Superintendent Cohen. We've already had multiple conversations, and everything we do and prepare for training, or if he hears back from principals, we're gonna be working very collaboratively, because he may call me up and say, hey Brian, I need to do this, this, or that, depending on what any scenario or situation that may come up.
I just want to mention also that Digital Provisions also comes, they are the folks who update our camera systems, our lockdown systems, the physical, button, etc. So they're here also on the lockdown drills with Altaris. And again, it's a cooperative effort between our business associates as well as the staff.
And that's actually a nice piece to bring up. I probably should have said that too. Many of the districts that we work with currently have Digital Provisions, and we have that great relationship, so that a lot of sync, we sync up very well together, if anything happens. And we notice something even digitally to follow up. If something that from the district gets notified, hey, from a safety point of view, Brian or whoever at Digital Provisions, we would follow up as well. We have a good relationship with them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for Brian? No? All right, wonderful. With that, the board at this time would like to go.
Before you do, I just had a couple of questions. You mentioned, Mr. Superintendent, about the November 14th meeting on cell phones and social media. Who's presenting on that?
discussion.
It's just open discussion?
Oh, yes.
So there's no one who's gonna be presenting on potentially what New York has proposed, what proposals are out there, it's it's just an open discussion?
I think in an open discussion, Sam, whatever is taking place on a statewide basis would be laid out for us that evening.
By whom? That's what I
By the
meant.
superintendent,
Thank you. And next month's professional development overview, who's presenting that?
Mike
Who's that?
Sherman.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sam. With that, at this time, the board would like to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. Do we have a motion? Jen, second? Jill, all in favor? All right, perfect. Thank you, and wishing everybody a happy and healthy school year. I hope everybody's had a wonderful return to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.